There comes a moment, not with thunder, not with warning, but with silence. A silence so sharp it slices through everything you thought was real. You sit there, holding the shattered pieces of something once sacred, trust. Not a wound you can show, not a bruise that fades, but a fracture in the soul, inflicted by someone who said, "I would never," and they did. This is not a speech about rage. This is not about justice or revenge or what they deserve. This is about you, how you rise, how you mend what they thought they destroyed, and how, through it all, you become something stronger than before. So if you've been betrayed, not once, not twice, but deeply, in a way words cannot capture, stay with me, because there's a way back, and it begins with truth. The fracture is real, don't pretend it didn't hurt. One of the greatest temptations after betrayal is to become numb, to shrink the pain down into something you can hold in your palm, name it nothing, and go about your day like nothing happened. We tell ourselves we're fine, we tell others it didn't really affect us. We wear strength like armor, and we hide behind laughter that doesn't quite reach the eyes. But the truth is, every betrayal is a fracture, and no fracture ever healed by being ignored. There is a kind of pain that speaks in silence, a kind that doesn't show itself in the form of tears or screaming. It just sits quietly behind the ribs, between the hours, in the hollow space where trust once lived. Betrayal, especially from those we held close, is a unique kind of heartbreak. It isn't just the loss of a person, it's the loss of an illusion. You grieve what was done, yes, but more than that, you grieve what you thought was real. You grieve the version of them you believed in. You grieve the version of yourself who believed. And in that space, many people rush to heal too quickly. They want to move on. They want to be the bigger person. But real strength isn't pretending you're unaffected. Real strength is standing in front of the mirror and admitting without shame, "That broke me." Because to admit pain is not to be weak, it is to be honest. And only honesty opens the door to healing. The truth is, betrayal cuts deep precisely because it comes dressed in closeness. Strangers cannot betray you. Only those you allowed into your world can truly wound you. And so when that trust is torn, it shakes something foundational. You may question your own judgment. You may replay conversations, rewind every memory, searching for signs you missed. That's normal. It's part of the mind trying to understand how something sacred became something sharp. Do not rush yourself out of that space. Do not let anyone convince you that you should be over it already. You're not slow, you're not dramatic, you're healing. And healing is not a race. It is a sacred reconstruction. The soul doesn't respond to deadlines, it responds to honesty. You cannot stitch the wound shut with denial and expect it to stay closed. It will find a way to bleed through the silence. So let it hurt, let it rise. Cry if you must, reflect if you can, speak if it helps. But whatever you do, don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't make yourself small just to seem unbothered. You are allowed to be wounded. You are allowed to be human, and in that humanity you will find the roots of your recovery. Because you cannot rebuild what you refuse to acknowledge is broken. Don't let the knife define the flesh. When someone betrays you, it often feels like a permanent mark has been left upon your identity, as if their lie, their abandonment, or their cruelty has become a chapter written into your skin. You begin to question your worth, not because of what you did, but because of what they chose. And somewhere, without even realizing it, You start wearing their choices as your reflection. This is the quiet tragedy of betrayal. It doesn't just break your trust in others, it starts to chip away at the trust you once had in yourself. You replay the moments. You question your intuition. You blame yourself for not seeing it coming. And before long, the sharpness of what they did begins to reshape how you see who you are. But here's the truth no one tells you in those early, fragile moments. The knife that cut you does not define the body it wounded. The betrayal that scarred you is not the sum total of your character. You are not what they did to you. It's easy to confuse the betrayal with identity. It's subtle how it happens. You catch yourself hesitating to trust, not just others, but even your own feelings. You hesitate to open up, to believe in something good again. And in that hesitation, you begin to shrink. You become quieter, more guarded, less free. You stop laughing the way you used to. You stop showing up with the same light. That is the quiet, invisible damage betrayal does, not just to the heart, but to the spirit. You must resist that slow erosion of self. You must remind yourself that their betrayal says everything about them and almost nothing about you. Their actions are not a mirror of your value. They are a reflection of their own fears, their own selfishness, their own inability to cherish what was real. You were honest, you were loyal, you gave what you had in truth. And nothing about that makes you foolish, it makes you brave. You are not the mistake they made. You are not the lie they told. You are not the moment they walked away. Those are events, choices, circumstances, but they are not your identity. Your identity is found in the way you chose to love, in the way you stayed kind, in the way you gave your trust, even though it came at a cost. That's the part they could never touch. That's the part they could never steal. So do not carry their shadow like it belongs to you. Do not give their actions the power to rewrite your story. Let the wound be real, but let it also be the beginning of a new chapter. One where you decide who you are, not them. You are not what they did. You are what you choose to become next. Silence is the womb of power. There is a moment after the chaos of betrayal when everything goes quiet. It's not the peace that comes from clarity, it's the silence that follows devastation, like the stillness of a room after something fragile has shattered. People often mistake this silence for weakness, as if your refusal to scream, to retaliate, to expose the wound somehow means you've lost the battle. But they don't understand that silence is not surrender, it is preparation. In silence, the mind begins its quiet labor, not to forget but to understand, not to strike back but to gather strength. The world around you may demand noise, answers, explanations, confrontations, but your soul knows better. Because real healing never happens under spotlights. It happens in the dark, quietly, patiently, out of view. Like a seed cracking open beneath the soil before it ever dares to rise. You don't have to announce your pain to validate it. You don't need to parade your healing to prove it's happening. The world may try to pull you into reaction. They may want your story, your outrage, your side of the drama. But don't trade your healing for their attention. Don't give away your process for the sake of performance. Because what's happening inside you is far too sacred to be made into a spectacle. Betrayal can make you feel like you've lost control, not just over someone else's actions, but over your own emotions. That's why silence matters. In silence, you reclaim that control. You stop being a puppet to their chaos and start becoming the architect of your peace. You begin to breathe differently. You begin to listen, not to them, but to yourself. And in that quiet, you'll hear a truth you'd forgotten. You are still here. Yes, it hurt. Yes, they broke something, but they didn't break everything. And what remains inside you is more powerful than what they took away. Stillness becomes your shield. Reflection becomes your sword. You realize that not every fire needs your voice to be extinguished. Some things die out simply because you walk away and let them burn in their own silence. This is not cowardice. It is maturity. It is restraint. It is wisdom. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Not out of apathy, but out of clarity. Not because you're weak, but because you know your energy is worth more than a confrontation that leads nowhere. Let your silence be the space where your soul resets. Let it be the cave where your strength returns. Let it be the answer they never expected, because they thought they had broken you. But all they did was push you into stillness. And in stillness, something greater begins to awaken. Let absence speak louder than revenge. There is a primitive urge that rises in the aftermath of betrayal, a voice inside that whispers, make them feel what you felt, make them see what they destroyed. It is a voice born from pain, from injustice, from the raw need to be acknowledged. And yet, if you listen closely, beneath that voice is a deeper longing, not for vengeance, but for peace. Not to punish them, but to be free of them. Revenge promises relief, but it delivers noise. It keeps you tied to the one who hurt you. It turns your energy inward, looping the wound in circles. You may feel powerful for a moment, but soon enough you're left emptier than before. Because revenge is not release, it's repetition. It is living inside the very moment you want to escape. But there is something far more powerful than retaliation, something quieter, harder, and infinitely more dignified. It is the decision to walk away, not because you are weak, but because you've learned how little they deserve your fire. Letting go is not giving up. It is not surrender. It is rising above. It is the realization that your presence was a gift, and your absence will echo louder than any angry word ever could. When someone betrays you, they expect chaos. They expect confrontation. They want to pull you back into the storm they created. But when you respond with stillness, when you retreat with grace, they are left to face something far more uncomfortable than your fury. They are left to face themselves. Let them wonder why you didn't fight to stay. Let them sit in the silence of your absence. Let them come to understand, in time, that what they lost was not replaceable, that your love, your trust, your loyalty were not ordinary things. They were rare, and now they are gone. Distance is a mirror. It reflects everything they took for granted. It forces them to see what they pushed away, and while they may not admit it, the weight of your absence will settle in places your words never could reach. It may not happen quickly, it may not happen publicly, but it will happen. Because the mind revisits what the heart was not ready to lose, and one day they'll look around and realize you never came back. And you won't need them to say it. You won't need them to regret it out loud. Because you'll already be elsewhere, healing, growing, becoming. You will have turned the page while they're still stuck, rereading the chapter they wrote in Betrayal. Let your silence be your strength. Let your distance be your declaration. Walk away not to prove them wrong, but to protect what is right in you. Your absence is your final masterpiece. Become the person they can never betray again. There comes a point in every healing journey where the focus shifts, where the pain, the memories, the weight of what was done to you begins to feel less like a chain and more like a doorway. In the beginning, All your energy is spent surviving, holding yourself together, hiding the cracks, trying to breathe through the storm. But eventually something changes. A quiet shift, like the first flicker of dawn after a long, starless night. And in that shift, you stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and start asking, "Who am I going to become because of it?" This is the turning point, the place where healing becomes power. It is not about pretending the betrayal never happened. It's about choosing to make something sacred out of the wreckage, becoming someone so grounded in self-worth, so deeply connected to your truth, that no one like them could ever reach that deep again. You begin to build boundaries, not walls, because walls keep love out, but boundaries guard the door with wisdom. You learn to trust again, but differently, slowly, with discernment, not from fear, but from knowledge. You stop blaming yourself for giving love. That was never the mistake. Loving was never the error. The mistake was assuming someone else could honor what they were not ready to receive. And now you know better. Now you love with eyes open. Now you walk with both your heart and your spine intact. Becoming the person they can never betray again doesn't mean you become hard or cold or suspicious of the world. It means you become rooted, clear, awake. It means you rebuild your life, not on the need to be validated by others, but on a foundation of self-respect so solid no lie can shake it. You start to pour into your passions, you reconnect with your voice, you protect your peace like it's a sacred flame, because now you know it is. And here's the quiet miracle of transformation. You begin to attract differently. You no longer call in chaos disguised as connection. You no longer chase love that has to be earned through suffering. Instead, you find relationships that mirror your healing, friends who respect your silence, partners who honor your boundaries, spaces where your truth doesn't make you too much, but makes you understood. You no longer carry the burden of needing to prove your worth. You've outgrown that weight. You've remembered who you are. And when the echoes of the past try to whisper that you are still that wounded version of yourself, you smile. Not in arrogance, but in awareness. Because you know now, you are not who they left. You are not who they lied to. You are not who they forgot. You are who rose. You are who stayed soft despite the reasons not to. You are who built something beautiful in the ruins. And if they ever look back, and they will, they won't recognize you, because you've become someone stronger than their memory of you, someone freer than the story they tried to leave you trapped in. This is not about revenge. This is not about proving them wrong. This is about becoming so whole, so deeply healed, that betrayal has no home in you anymore. It knocks, but it finds no entry. It echoes, but receives no answer. Because you've outgrown the version of you who could be broken by someone else's weakness. Now you carry your story with grace, not as a scar to hide, but as a map of how far you've come. You walk not with bitterness, but with quiet power. Not to forget what happened, but to live so fully beyond it, it no longer defines you. This is how you recover from betrayal, not just by surviving it, but by becoming the kind of person who would never again lose themselves in someone else's shadow.